And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday session, which normally is not on menopause, but per Donna, the last time we were on, we had so many tech issues. I said, I have to get this lady on before the month is out. So we are covering menopause and nutrition now, today, with Donna McGettigan. Donna, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for being patient with me.
Oh, not at all. At least we're here, and the two of us are on. We have lights, we have sound, and now we will.
Thank gosh, yes.
Action.
Let it last now.
I know. Nutrition and menopause. Donna, where do we start?
Where do we start? Well, I suppose the thing to think about is our nutrition needs change over our whole life. You know, it's not just at menopause time. If you think, we'll go with females because we're more complicated. I think if you think of our life cycle from the day we're born until the end, the changes that we go through, it's huge. You know, the childhood, the teenage years, childbearing years, then we've got menopause. So, you know, it's up and down. You know, our hormones are all over the place. There's different times we're growing. So when we get as far as menopause, then our estrogen is beginning to fall. And it does have an awful lot of knock-on effects all through our body. And our nutrition should fall in to support that. You know, that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, and of course, it's with the fall in estrogen and that, then our weight starts fluctuating. Is that's one of the key factors for the weight?
Sadly, yeah, sadly and very unfairly, I think. But, you know, through the life cycle for everybody, our weight kind of tends to go up as we age. You know, that's kind of, we need less food. And if we keep eating the same amount of food, we're going to gain weight. You know, that's just 1 + 1 is 2. But then when the estrogen begins to fall, that weight starts sticking around the middle rather than maybe the bums and the legs where it would have went pre-40s, you know. So it does start gathering in the middle, which number one doesn't make us feel great. You know, we want a waist. But the other side of it is the health side of it, that once it's gathering around the waist, it's gathering around your organs. It's around your liver, around your stomach. So it's increasing your risks then of cardiovascular disease, diabetes. So this is why we really want to try and avoid it, not just the aesthetic, but the health as well.
And that's why obviously then the middle does become such a focus in menopause.
Yeah. And once we kind of hit menopause, our risks of cardiovascular disease become equal to men's. And that's the main difference, is with the estrogen falling, it's gathering in the middle. And that's where we're similar. And that's where the risks are then too, you know. So we want to avoid it. But we need to be looking after ourselves from as early as we can. You know, there's no point in sitting and going, right, I'm here now. Don't let it get that far if you can avoid it. But again, it's never too late to start fixing things either. So
what kind of foods, even before we move on to the other aspects of diet, the nutrition menopause, so are there some, I mean, we know that there will be some foods you look at it and go, yeah, well, that's an inch on the hips anyway, before it even goes near my mouth. But would there be, you know, are some people more susceptible then to that additional weight on the tummy than others, you know?
Yeah, well, it would seem that, you know, if you were always prone to getting weight around your middle before menopause, it's not going to improve for you. So you might have already have some weight gain around your middle and it's only going to get worse. So that's where you definitely want to start making an effort to try and change what's going on. Because again, it's going to increase your health risks even more. So foods, you know, if you want to get specific about foods, you can't go far wrong by looking at the food pyramid. You know, and I suppose I'm always on about the food pyramid, and it sounds so simplistic, but it really, really helps you to break it down. So on the food pyramid, you've got your bottom shelf is your 5 fruit and veg. So if you plan your diet in this way, you won't go wrong. So 5 fruit and veg every day, 3 to 5 cereal, bread or potatoes. And for women, 3 is plenty if you're not active. If you're an active woman, 5 is where you want to be. So, you know, go by that. Then you want 2 to 3 portions of dairy every day, 2 portions of meat or alternatives every day. And then we're getting up into the fats and the treats and the bars and the buns, and you don't want them every day. You know, that's where we're running into bother. It's the sugary treats. You know, they really add calories with no value.
And I know for myself, and I'm sure there's plenty of others out there, that with our moods going a bit iffy. Now, obviously, if you're eating right, I know, well, the moods, it should help the moods.
Yeah.
But yet when you get, well, for myself, I run for the biscuit or the bar or the cuppa when you get that bit moody. So how do we kind of then manage that?
Yeah. Well, definitely, you're right, because when your mood dips, or even when your energy dips, you have the same kind of response. So your body, your brain uses simple sugar for energy. That's all your brain can use for energy. So if there's a dip like that, your immediate reaction is to eat sugar, because it'll put it straight up again. But it'll put it straight up and straight down. So as you said, it's about managing the diet, managing those things before they get to that point. So if you can introduce, I mentioned about having 3 to 5 portions of your cereals and your breads. If you have the whole grain, so if you go for your whole grain breads, rices, and pastas, those type of foods break down much more slowly than your white bread or your white pasta, which balances out that irritability a wee bit and the energy. It just means you're getting a little over a long time rather than that burst of energy and a dip again.
So it's like porridge, because porridge is that slow release.
Porridge is brilliant, great whole grain, and it just like that. It has the benefit of making you feel fuller as well. So those kind of high fiber, complex carbs, they're full of nutrients, much more so than a refined white, like a cornflakes or Rice Krispies. And they're nice now and again too, don't get me wrong. If you have your whole grains most days, you're going to be getting far more out of it, and it'll last you much longer. Also on the moods thing, protein's very important too. Like there's an amino acid called tryptophan, and you find it in like turkey, some cheeses, nuts, and it's actually what our body uses to make serotonin, which is the happy hormone.
Right.
So if you're simply not eating protein, a little bit of each meal, you physically don't have the nuts and bolts to make some of the happy hormones. So it's very important too that you're getting a little bit of everything in there and not skipping the meals. Because again, we all know if you skip the meals, that's going to lead to the hangry or whatever,
Yeah, and that's it, because you do, well, as I say, on all these menopause chats that we've been doing here, I can speak from what I go through myself, and you do become that bit more snappy and irritable. But as you say, then it's the sugar level is dipping and your body is trying to compensate for it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that has come up previously as well, and we were chatting about it earlier, is for our bones, because dairy is there on the food pyramid.
Yes.
But if you happen to be, I'm not like vegan or something like that, like what do women who take dairy, what do they
if you
do?
don't, like bone strength, it's vital really. Of all the foods, it's the one I would worry about most, because we all kind of have a little bit of fruit and veg and a little bit of carbs, but a lot of people do cut out the dairy. And if we don't get vitamin D and calcium into us at this age, we are running into broken hips, broken wrists, and it's not that far away until that starts happening. Like our bones are built really by the time we're 25. And after that, we're only maintaining them. So the stronger you can have them, if anybody has young people about the house, the more calcium and vitamin D, if they're getting the recommended up until the early 20s, they're starting from a great foundation. So from then on, like I said, we're kind of just maintaining it. So if you don't get enough calcium in your diet, it's leaching out. And that's where you end up on the road to osteoporosis. So to your question, if you don't take your 3 recommended kind of dairy foods every day, choose your dairy alternatives. I would go for soya and get the ones with the added calcium and the added vitamin D. Definitely get where the calcium is coming from. And if you don't take those foods either, it's time to think about supplementing. It's vital to be getting in your calcium at this age.
And that's on the download, because there is a download that we put into the chat. I think, Esther, it's there somewhere for the chat, where people can download that sheet because you've put loads of information, and you have the food pyramid on it as well for people to follow. And the funny thing is, when I look at the food pyramid, I automatically think of primary school.
It's the way it's drawn. I think it should appeal to everybody, but you're right.
Yeah, I don't know why it is. I automatically think of primary school, but actually the food pyramid itself has changed over the past few years as well.
It has, yeah.
Some of the foods have moved from different sections.
They swapped. It used to be that the cereals were on the bottom, that we should have 5 a day, and the fruit and veg was in the next one up to have less. But now we know we want more fruit and veg and less of the cereals, because anybody who is eating too much, and this is the thing we run into, no, not you, all of us, as we get older, from birth to death again, we need less calories every year, every decade. We need a wee bit less, because our body we lose muscle tone, so we just need less calories in as time goes by. And the place to shave off those calories is your breads and your cereals and your potatoes. If 3 portions a day really is plenty for most women, so it's one to think about. But the other thing they changed in the food pyramid was they chopped off the top, which is your sweets and your buns and your sugary treats again. So not every day.
Not every day.
Yeah.
So what are there, when it comes to menopause, one of the other big things is our hot flushes, and that, are there certain foods that can trigger them, or is there a way of looking at our diet to ease them, I suppose, is the best way to
Well, again, anything that's kind of metabolic like that, I think eating little and often can only help. Not leaving big gaps and not having big huge feeds. Anybody who's after sitting and eating a big huge feed is going to feel a bit sweaty. So don't put yourself in those situations. Some foods then are definitely triggers, like your spicy foods, alcohol, those type of things, and definitely not at night time. Coffee is another one. The caffeine can be a trigger.
Yeah, that's one I find. I have to say, that is one I find, and I'm trying to wean myself away from.
And that's the way to do it. Look at yourself, recognize for yourself what's triggering it in you, because everybody is different, and you can't say what suits one will suit somebody else. So you're right to just, examine your own diet and your own symptoms, and keeping a food diary can be very useful for anybody that's going through any kind of physical symptoms, to write down why you ate. Sometimes if you feel you're eating too much, write down why you ate it. Were you hungry? Were you bored? Was it just sitting there? And it can be very useful even to just make you stop and think, what am I eating and why I'm eating it? But also record any symptoms. So you might be able to look back and see if something is triggering, a hot flash or headaches or even irritability. If you record your feelings along with your eating and your moods and stuff, it can definitely see patterns as time goes by.
What about fish? Would fish be I was reading something, was it oily fish or something during menopause? I think it was oily fish.
I'd say, we are all recommended to have 2 portions of oily fish a week, because it's a healthy fat, great protein, omega-3 in the oily fish. So you're talking salmon, you're talking mackerel, even the tinned sardines are an excellent wee choice.
That was what I was reading on. It was actually tinned sardines, because my late father, God rest him, used to love them, and it was a real treat. Mom used to eat.
And you know what? They're like 50 or 60 cents, in the cheaper supermarkets. And it's like omega-3 is great for skin, great for heart health, great for the joints. And it's something, and I used to do some work with some people in the food industry, and Donegal is like the worst place for eating fish, and we've the biggest port in the country. You know what I mean? Just, and it's an old kind of Irish thing. We used to be talking about it, and it's like the old notion of the fish was the punishment days of the week. The Friday fish and the meat-free days and that type of thing. But it's one of the healthiest animal proteins you can get. So it's definitely, if you could have oily fish twice a week, it could really, really help with a lot of different symptoms.
So, and as you said, for those maybe who are vegan or whatever, then they're going to be looking at supplements instead.
Yeah, well, you get some omega-3 from flaxseed. But again, when it comes to, it's like we're talking about the calcium. You can get some calcium from green veg, but when the nutrients are tied up in a plant food, they're harder for us to break down and absorb. You know, as you can imagine, an animal flesh is more similar to our, you know, we can break it down easier. But when it's in a plant food, it's often locked up tighter. So you never really get as much as you would from an animal source of, say, omega-3. Not to say a plant-based diet can be very healthy, but, you know, just as long as you know what you're doing. And if you are missing out on nutrients, to find another source for them.
And would you would you do up, say, a menu plan for somebody who came to you, you know, in menopause with all the different symptoms?
Yeah.
And all that, and you would be able to go through, say, eating habits and patterns. I know I would do it with the CBT with my own clients, but I'm not obviously a nutritionist, which is why you're here. But it's just that to go to it, because you mentioned it earlier on, you know, the food diary. Now, I would absolutely 100% agree. The food diary is vital when you are looking back. And I suppose that maybe I'm just so practiced in watching, you know, what I do, but I have the most horrendous sweet tooth.
Yeah. And, you know, it should be easy to solve because we know we shouldn't be doing it. But it's not. And I think when you're trying to get somebody to wean themselves down, somebody needs to talk to somebody like you as much as somebody like me, because I mean, I can talk till the cows come home about nutrition and nutrients and what you should be doing, but it's changing your behavior. You know, that's what it comes down to in the end. It really is. And the longer I spend with people, the more I know it to be true. You know, and I used to work with somebody, and let's say if you came to me and I do up a meal plan and, you know, I'd send you off with it. But it really has to be slowed down to work. Really, really, really does. And like, if it's one step at a time, no matter how small a step is, it's a step in the right direction. So if next week, rather than even focusing on sugary foods, I'd say up your water intake. You know, do that for a week. See how you go.
Now that brings me, water. Yeah, you can probably tell by my reaction. I am I try. How much should we be drinking? Because I sometimes feel like I'm drowning myself if I was to try and keep up with the
recommendations.
Yeah, with the recommendations.
They say, you know, it's around 1.5 liters to 2 liters, depending if you're very active or not. But everything you drink counts. So if you're having 6 cups of coffee and 2 liters of water, you know, you may just stay in the toilet.
I was just going to say, whatever about the hot flush in bed, my God, tonight.
There's time for that. But if, you know, they all count. And in fairness, caffeine is one we try not to count it as it, but it's still a liquid at the end of the day. But we don't really count the benefits as much because the caffeine dehydrates you. So it makes you pee more. So even though you're getting the liquid in, you're setting it out too quick. So if you had the same amount of liquid in just water, you would be getting more benefit off it.
Oh, right. Right.
It's a diuretic. So it just makes your kidneys expel it that much quicker, among all the other things that it does. But
yeah, so 2 liters. Now I will get through a couple of glasses, and I have mine.
Good girl.
Yes. But I'll only do about maybe a pint or so if I can during the day. I don't know what it is. Whereas
it's like any habit, though, you know. Yeah. And you don't feel thirsty. And to be honest, by the time you feel thirsty, you should have been drinking ages ago. You know, that's the thing about it. Our cue comes past the point of where we really should have been drinking earlier. Like, say, for example, like this, where you were working at the desk for the morning and you didn't have any water with you. Come 11, you had a coffee. Come 1, you might have your lunch. Say by 3 o'clock, you have a pounding headache. And you think, I've had enough of this screen, or I've worked too hard today. And you rarely think, oh, maybe I'm dehydrated, you know.
That's true.
And it's so often the cause of those afternoon, or the slump, just when you want to put your head down on the desk for 5 minutes, or you reach for a Twix again. Often it's dehydration. you think I'm done. I need a break. So it's tea and a Kit Kat rather than sipping on the water all day. You mightn't feel like that at all.
So sipping away at it while
Yeah.
we're working is actually, because I suppose, I mean, I always tell people you break it down into little bits, and actually that's what we should be doing with the water rather than trying to put in a full glass at a time.
Absolutely.
Sipping
and I
away
would even pare it back further, like find a bottle that you like the color of, that you like to touch, that has a nice straw or a nice mouthpiece that you like. If you take it right back to the simplest things that make it easy for us, if we're attracted to it, we'll do it, or we're more chance of doing it, I suppose. Just make it attractive, that's, and have it
not to add any dilute to it.
Well, I wouldn't be a big fan of dilute now, but you know what is great? The fruit infuser bottles. Right. They have like a mesh on the inside.
Yeah.
You can chop up your strawberry or your whatever flavor that you like, and it gives it that wee fruity tang.
Oh, right.
Out the sweeteners that you might get in a dilute. So they're nice. Yeah, it just gives it a wee taste.
I hadn't come across
water is boring.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. So, okay, so we're on to snacks now, as you said. We kind of want. You mentioned Kit Kat. Shame on you.
Sorry.
So healthy snacks then. So what little peps can we give ourselves then during the day while still, obviously this is all to do with sugar balance as well.
It is, big time. It is. And if you think of the foods I mentioned there now, we want to get at least 5. In some countries we'll say 7 fruit and veg in every day. In Australia they actually go as far as 5 veg and 2 fruit.
Right.
If you kind of think of it that way. So if you can definitely try and use fruit and veg as your snacks. So like a banana, an apple, bunch of grapes, and people will say, God, you can't be eating strawberries, they're full of sugar. Don't worry. Nobody ever put on weight eating fruit.
That's true.
It's only.
That's true.
It drives me mad when people talk about that. Like the sugar that's in fruit is tied up in vitamins and minerals and fiber. It's good for you. It's not like the Kit Kat. Not to be down on Kit Kats, they're lovely, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Also then for snacks, I talked about protein, and having a little bit of protein at times over the day is great for mood. So you get protein in your dairy products as well. So a little portion, portion of cheese is just a small matchbox. Just to put that out there for people, because it's very easy.
A portion is.
Yeah. So it's very easy to go beyond a portion of cheese.
You see, we're big cheese eaters here in this house.
Yeah, and cheese is so good for you, but it's 1/3 protein, 1/3 fat. So it's one of those foods. It's great in moderation. The small yogurts, about 100 grams, or if you get the big tub, about 100 grams of natural, unsweetened yogurt. Don't go for the low fat, don't go for the low calorie, don't go for the flavored. You go for your plain natural yogurt. Again, add in a wee bit of chopped fruit if you want, or a wee drop of honey if you don't like the taste. That's the way
I find that great. I sometimes get that, or the Greek yogurt for smoothies.
Perfect.
Yeah, because
the only difference really between Greek and natural is Greek yogurt is sieved natural yogurt. So there's less water in it, which makes it higher in protein. So it's perfect. Great. Smoothies are brilliant snack too.
Yeah, especially because I know there, if I wanted to try, say, a new fruit or something, sometimes I would still go into Aldi or Lidl, wherever it is, and I look at a friend, I go, what's that? How do you eat that? And then if I want to try it, knowing it's a fruit, I'll throw it into a smoothie just to see.
And I would say that to everybody. When you do go in and there's the 49-cent section.
Yeah.
There might be something there. You're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Buy it. Google a recipe. That's the only way to expand our taste buds and our meals, is to try stuff. And I know you think, oh, what if I don't like it now? I'll be stuck having to eat it. But sure, what have you got to lose for 49 cents? Go for it.
Well, that's true. So we've looked at now, so our waistline. So obviously we need to balance. So we're balancing our foods, but are we balancing the colors of them as well?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, the 5 to 7 fruit and veg every day. We don't want to be eating the same ones. We don't want to be having 5 portions of peas and 2 apples. every day. You really want to eat the rainbow, you know, and that's the secret to balancing your diet in every type of food, but especially in the fruit and veg. And again, trying those new things that you haven't tried before. Every kind of fruit and veg has different vitamins, different minerals, different phytochemicals, different components that we don't even understand yet. And the benefit we get from them is to have all the different types. They think for our gut bacteria to optimize it, we should be aiming for 30 different plant foods a week. And it sounds like I never do that.
I'm thinking of the shopping list here. Yeah.
You find all your grains as well, like they're all plant foods as well, all your different types of veg. And just another thing I'd say about fruit and veg is don't be afraid to buy the frozen ones. They're often even more nutritious than the fresh because they're frozen on the day of that they're picked. Yeah. Whereas the fresh one could be sitting about for a few weeks. And sometimes I'll take a carrot out of my fridge and it doesn't even look like a carrot anymore. But you know, the frozen ones last, so, and they're cheap. So, you know, don't be afraid to throw them into your smoothie too. Because if you have nice fruit in your smoothie, you should be able to sneak in some veg as well. That'd be something else.
God, yes. See, it must be great being in your house.
Not according to my children, no. Mommy, there's definitely broccoli in that, isn't there?
So would you make oat cakes and things like that then yourself? Because I haven't done them in so long. Now that my kids are kind of growing up, I haven't done, and actually I should, because it's now, I need to mind my own weight.
This is it. Yeah, we do it for them, Barbara, quicker than we do it for ourselves.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Funny, we were just talking today about baking since lockdown has begun. And I when I'm busy, I'm great at being organised on a Sunday evening. But see, since routine has gone out the window, we're kind of back to cooking every day. And I don't like the lack of routine about it. So the last few weeks, we've kind of tried to go back to being organised on the Sunday evening and having the prep as much as can done for the week. But we all love these blueberry bars that I make. They're kind of, well, I don't. We all make them now. It's great. Thank God. But it's like just oats, blueberries, a bit of honey, a bit of oil. It's just like a biscuit alternative. Great. Go down a treat. The simple things like that. Do you know?
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. Absolutely. And I was thinking of something else there now that it's gone from my head for the moment. Esther, how are we doing out there on the forum?
We have just a comment, somebody laughing. Kathleen McGettigan, maybe a family member. They're just saying, haha, Donna, about the...
Hi,
Mom.
I love it. Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
Yeah, trust the mothers to come on it. And embarrass. No comment, no other comments right now. I've just been putting out the download and some of the comments that Donna's been saying. So I'm pretty sure people are overwhelmed with what's being said anyway.
No, absolutely, because they're like, there is so much in it. And like, I mean, menopause is a bit of the way off yet for you, Donna, I know. So, you know,
no,
but
it's in the post, Barbara.
It's in the post. But that thing you were saying, like you were saying earlier on about our bones. So for, you know, I'm just conscious of for the non-dairy people that being able to get something that's fortified with the vitamin D and all that, because I know from personal experience, our bone strength is, you know, I mean, we're going to need them for a while,
Absolutely. Do you know, I meant to say to you, the lady that was on talking about exercises last week.
Yes.
She's very, very good.
Anne-Marie, she's brilliant.
Anne-Marie, very good. And I loved her take on when you're putting something in your mouth, what is this doing for me? It's a great attitude to have. Really, really, really good, actually. I was going to steal that. Didn't mean to say that on here now.
I think that was one of the things. I think the nation now is kind of going to steal that. We'll be stick it on the door. What's it going to do for me?
But Anne-Marie was pointing out the importance of exercise. I mean, your weight bearing exercise and your diet together are what your bones need. Each one on their own isn't going to be enough. Also, on the vitamin D point, I know you could talk about these things all day, but vitamin D, you know, our recommended level in Ireland is 10 micrograms a day for, I think, over 5s really. But during COVID, there's a bit of research going on in Trinity where they thought a slightly higher amount might be optimal. In the summer, it's not as important if we're getting outside. But see, when it comes to the winter again, and if we're worrying about a second wave, we might want to increase our vitamin D supplement a small bit. Remains to be seen, it's early days, but coming into the autumn again, I would just keep my eyes open for those kind of recommendations, because in Ireland we tend to recommend the safest that won't, do us any harm, and it'll get us over, the base level of being well. But optimizing your health takes a higher level again of nutrients. So those things, there might be changes in the next few months, I think, with some things. So just for people to be aware and keep your eyes open for that.
That's brilliant. No, that's great, Donna. And I know it's Donna McGettigan Nutrition.com. So anybody can get in touch with you there. The download is on the page for anyone. And I have no doubt that people will be watching this back later on. I do know I got a few messages from it. And I suppose because we're talking about it today on the Tuesday and it's normally the Thursday, I know a lot of people will follow up with it then as well. But Donna, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Great that it worked. Delighted.
Our tech just was perfect.
Thanks, Esther, too, for being there in case.
So thanks, Donna, and I will chat to you.
Thanks for having me, Barbara.